if you're in Albuquerque and you could use a quick update on the balance of power over at City Council and sort of what's going on, I got you. So the first thing to know is that there is a new councilor. Stephanie Tejas took over District 1. She won that race just really by a majority. It was previously held by Luis Sanchez, who ran for mayor and lost. Tejas is like an unapologetic champion for working people, so that's a good development. The second piece is that Klarissa Peña, who's in District 3, won re-election by like 70 votes and kind of worked her way into the presidency. She was elected president of the Albuquerque City Council last week. And there's probably different kind of backroom conversations that have to happen for that to work. But I think it's pretty clear to say that Pena kind of worked the relationships with the more conservative members of the council, and so she was elected president. And then Dan Champagne, who's fairly conservative, was elected vice president. And the president has quite a bit of say in sort of how things get done and what is actually put on the agenda, what the conversations are. So it's a pretty significant move. Now, Pena has been a more conservative kind of Dem on the council for quite a few years. She's been in office since 2013. And I think some people were kind of wondering, and also some people were kind of figuring, like, would she go a little bit more conservative? Not just because she made a bargain with, the more conservative members of the council to get that presidency spot, but also just like, what are her actual beliefs and perspectives? She's got, quite a bit of backing over the years from wealthy developers and kind of rich moneyed corporate interests. So question is sort of like, where would she lean? And I think we got a pretty good indicator last week, because one of the very first votes that the council took under her tenure had to do with setting like fair rent practices for property owners. And I should just pause here for a second to say that, I'm an independent progressive. I'm somebody who really believes in common sense policy. I want to see housing that people can afford. I want to see jobs that pay us fair wages and that treat us respectfully. I want to see good, thriving local businesses. And I want people to be able to go to school and go to the doctor and actually be able to afford to take care of their families. Like, those are the priorities that I have. And so I watched this rental practices ordinance really closely because it matters a lot to me and the people in my life. And basically, the rental ordinance, which was brought up by City Councilor Nicole Rogers, who's in District 6, that's the district that I'm in, would have taken a state law that was passed and provided for local resources to enforce that law, capping the amount of money that a property owner can charge to file an application to even rent a house. It totally happens. There's these cases where property owners will double charge application fees, or they'll already have someone in mind for the property, but they'll still, get a bunch of new applications just to make a little buck, which I think is, pretty clearly unethical. So this ordinance would have changed that. And I think pretty clearly we've got indication of where the council is headed, because Pena led the vote against it. And there's a lot of different excuses for it, but I think at the end of the day, like, if property owners are unethical and unfairly charging people, like, that's a pretty good thing for a city to enforce. I'll tell this story in depth some other time, but one of the very first houses my family grew up in here was in the South Valley, and it was owned by the Traub family, which was, some people kind of know them, but they're the owners of Knockouts Club downtown Albuquerque. And yeah, I'm not going to say the word slumlord, but I'm going to say the word slumlord. Like, they were not good people, and they treated my family really poorly and all of their other tenants as well. So this type of legislation has a big impact. But Pena kind of led it in the other direction, and it failed on a 5-4 vote with the conservatives and Pena, voting it down. So I think that is a pretty good indicator of kind of what we're going to see. And if you have thoughts, questions, feedback, whatever else you're thinking about, I'm also doing quite a bit of work around this in terms of getting folks engaged. So yeah, if this is the kind of stuff that matters to you, hit me up. I'm happy to patch you into those efforts too.